Oh, wait, we're here for the U.S. election results. Oh, no, wrong program. Sorry about that. All right, welcome to Disrupt TV. You're in the green room, and in the green room, we actually share some interesting comments about what's going on. You get a quick preview. So we're going to go backwards and reverse order to introduce everyone. So Cheryl, where are you calling in from? What are you talking about today?
Yeah, hi, everybody. I'm calling from Chicago, so I'm based in Chicago. I'm with Demand Tech by Acoustic, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what people can expect with the holiday season and the impact on retailers today.
Very, very cool. All right, Asha, where are you calling in from, and what are you talking about today?
Hey, Ray, thanks for having me on. I'm calling in from Long Island, New York. I'm going to talk about some of the Sprinklr's work on value realization and digital adoption and anything else that comes up.
Very, very cool. And you are a BT 150 winner. Dan, what are you talking about? And you're out late. What's going on here?
That's right. I'm calling in from London, England, and I'm going to be talking about AI in the energy industry, which is a really exciting topic.
Very, very cool. All right. Well, this is our show. I'm Ray Wang. We've got my co-founder, co-host, co-presenter, and of course, really the brains behind the show, Vala. But actually, the real brains behind the show is actually Elle, our producer. Right. So we're about to start the show, and welcome everybody to the backstage, and happy Friday. So I guess you're going to do the honors, Elle.
All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us on Disrupt TV. My name is Vala Afshar. I'm the Chief Digital Evangelist at Salesforce and your co-host for the next hour. We welcome you to follow us on Twitter, following our Twitter account, Disrupt TV Show. Send Ray, myself, and our distinguished guests your questions live using hashtag Disrupt TV, and we'll do our best to answer them during the show. It's my pleasure to introduce my co-host. He's the CEO and founder of Constellation Research. He's the best-selling author of Disrupting Digital Business. He's a regular contributor to Harvard Business Review, ZDNet, and you can catch him almost daily on Fox Business, Yahoo Finance, Bloomberg, CNN, and all the other technology media outlets. In my opinion, he's one of the top futurists to follow on Twitter at RWANG0. Welcome, Ray Wang, to Disrupt TV.
Hey, thanks a lot. With my awesome co-host, Vala Afshar. He's being modest. I'm going to find his book one day. I'm going to put it out there. Vala's also an author. He's one of the top people to follow. You've probably seen him in keynotes all over the place. He's on business TV and, of course, an awesome speaker and friend. But, thanks for everyone being on the show. We've got a lot to talk about. But first, we want to thank our sponsors, Robot and Pencils. They've actually helped us a lot. And they're actually, if you know them, if you're thinking about design, you're thinking about great work, we're giving Robots and Pencils a shout out as well. So thanks for being a sponsor. More importantly, who is on our show today? What are we leading with and what are we talking about, Vala?
Ray, it's our privilege to have Dan Jeavons, General Manager of the Data Science Center of Excellence at Shell, as our first guest. Dan has led the multi-award-winning Data Science Center of Excellence since its inception in 2013, growing the team from ground up to over 160 individuals. Dan was recognized in the top 50 data leaders in the UK, and his team received the Hackett Award for data analytics the same year. Dan has been a significant contributor to the development of Shell's digital strategy, which has now delivered over 1 billion in cost reductions, production increase, and additional customer margins. Dan was part of the team which developed the Shell.ai brand, which is now externally recognized. And the work of his team and their impact has been recently publicized in mainstream journals like Forbes, Wall Street Journal, and Financial Times. Welcome, Dan, to Disrupt TV.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here. And I've been following you guys for a while. I love the show. So I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Thanks, Dan. Thank you for joining us for dinner.
No, it's all
yes,
good.
Thank you. No, thank you for being here. And also, you are a Supernova Award finalist. So pretty exciting. So I think the actual awards are going to be revealed at the Constellation Connected Enterprise event on the 27th October. But hey, you've been working on data science for a while and AI. We're talking about big data in big oil. This is amazing. So talk a little bit about what's going on in terms of this center of excellence and how did it come about? Because not a lot of organizations put these in as early as you guys have.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we were super lucky in that we got in early. Maybe just to say, Shell's been at this for a long time. We can trace, if you like, the origins of my organization back to the 1970s when we started doing things like statistics and scenario planning and really led the industry in setting that up. But I think more recently, as you mentioned, from 2013 onwards, we've been trying to figure out what is this new thing that we call now AI. I think it's been through various incarnations. Predictive analytics, we called it for a while, then advanced analytics, and now, of course, AI. But I think at the core of it, it's quite simple. We recognize that actually the data sets are getting larger. The capabilities to process those data in the cloud is getting exponentially more effective and efficient, and new opportunities, as well as getting easier as some of the APIs and so on become much more accessible to end users. And then, of course, the key thing is that for our business, the ability to provide insight back to the frontline staff to make them, to enable them to make different decisions, to change the workflows that we operate every day, that has huge potential. And I think what's important to recognize is that we're, if you like, an industry in transition. We're going, originally, as you mentioned, oil and gas is our heritage, but increasingly a lot of what we're doing is moving into the new energy space. And so we've got that energy transition happening, and at the same time, this new trend of digital disruption is happening. And those two things are really coming together. And I've been very fortunate in that, going back to that early heritage, we had a really strong set of foundations to build on. And we've been able to build a team around these new technologies, which is really starting to transform the way in which many parts of our business operate, be that the traditional parts, but also the newer parts as well. And I think it's just a really exciting time, because I feel like AI is just coming of age. We've been testing it, we've been building capabilities around it, but we're at this inflection point where it's really becoming a mainstream theme for our business leaders, where we're really seeing material impact. You talked about some of the value that we're seeing from the digital transformation already. And I just feel very lucky to be in the middle of that, and to have been shaping a small team into now a rather larger team that's trying to figure this all out.
But one of the interesting things that you've done, as Doug Henschens on my team kind of talked about in the past, as he worked with you guys, is that you've actually built a very effective team without having to go hire tons of data scientists. And you also went out and trained execs and line of business execs on some of these techniques. So I think that's kind of interesting to hear about how that happened.
Yeah, it's been super fun. I mean, I think, first and foremost, I think what you have to recognize is that I mentioned it at the start, but we're a very technical company. Most of the people in the organization are engineers, chemists. They have expertise in geology, so they have deep science backgrounds. They've normally got a pretty good understanding of math, and often they're writing some code and have been doing so for many years. And I think what we saw very clearly was that because of this deep, rich technical heritage that we had, unlike others who maybe had to import that into the organization in one way, shape, or form, our opportunity was to kind of mash up some external thinking with the existing capabilities that we had. And so Shell.ai is first and foremost a change program. It's about trying to embed AI in every part of our business. And to do that, you've got to think differently about, how do you transform from the inside, right? So how do you start to generate adoption for the operators, for the engineers who are sat at the site, the technologists, as well as, of course, the data science team? And so what we've done is we came up with a number of principles of how do you do that. We started off with a network. The network started as about 30 people back in 2013. It's now about 4,000, to give you an idea. And so
Wow.
That network, which was sort of at its core just a bunch of enthusiasts that started talking about what this could do for our organization, has kind of gone viral through the organization. And that's been super exciting. And along the way, we've sort of figured out, well, we need to get leadership support. So we started doing some training courses for leaders, as you mentioned, in getting them to code in Python. We actually went to some of our very senior leadership teams and taught them Python coding. And also, we've also been trying to think about how do we build consistent ways of working. So build a common platform. We partnered with Udacity, who've been super for us in developing a set of curriculums that we could roll out throughout the organization, some for data scientists or people who are training to be data scientists, but also for what we call citizen data scientists. So people who are primarily engineers, but need some data science to now be able to do their job. And so we've been rolling this stuff out right across the organization. We're also trying to bring innovation in from the outside into the organization through new technologies in the platform space, but also by working with really innovative startups that challenge our ways of thinking, and through big tech partnerships. So working with companies like Microsoft, which we announced this week, to start to develop ecosystems where we can co-develop technology and start to accelerate that pace of change. So I think, like I said, it's been about that change program, trying to almost build a viral movement within the organization that makes it much easier to deploy AI at scale. And I mean, we talked about it earlier on this week, but we've got kind of about 48 AI applications going into production this year.
Wow.
And about 160 odd projects in the pipeline. So it gives you an idea of the scale of what we're trying to do.
It's amazing scale. It's an amazing vision. Kudos to you and your team. In 7 years, you've built a powerhouse capability, which every company needs, in my opinion. So, you know, when you think about the centers of excellence focus, you have make Shell more effective and efficient. So you want to talk about scale, and some of these numbers may be outdated, but based on my research, you've got 500,000 valves globally, 2 million machine learning models running concurrently. Talk about the scale of being able to have that predictive maintenance and being able to optimize equipment failure detection and prediction, leading to that $1 billion savings that I referenced in your introduction. So efficiency and effectiveness. And then the second part is thrive through this energy transition towards this movement towards clean energy. And Shell clearly wants to be a leader. And some people don't recognize that Shell, the size, again, these may be outdated numbers, but my research points to 44,000 retail stations in 70 countries serving 30 million customers. So from a single brand, that's bigger than Starbucks or McDonald's. Just to put it in context. So you have upstream innovation in terms of serviceability, and you have downstream in terms of delighting stakeholders, personalized delivery, the citizen development movement. I know that there's 10,000 Salesforce users using mobile applications within the Shell ecosystem. So there's this incredible upstream, downstream. Give advice to folks who are trying to do what you did 7 years ago. How do you, in a big company, nearly 100,000 employees, create a center of excellence where you could have 100+ AI projects in the pipeline, and you get buy-in and sponsorships and executive stakeholders who allow you to move like a startup? How do you do that in a big company?
Yeah, look, it's a great question. And I think I was very lucky. Let me start there. I mean, some of the scale of Shell, you put it out there. I mean, just to update the numbers so you get the idea. I mean, we've got about 1.3 trillion rows of data that we've ingested into the platform that you talked about for predictive maintenance. And we're actively monitoring now about 2,300 pieces of equipment in production every day, using a multiple of machine learning models that you talked about. So it gives you an idea of that sort of scale. And as I said, those 48 applications that are going into production this year, 160 odd in development, you get an idea of what we're doing. And I think the challenge, right, is we didn't start there, right? This is 6 years into the journey. And I remember one of my senior leaders who's been a great mentor of mine sat me down at the start of this, and she said, Dan, don't be impatient. It takes 5 years to build a capability. You've got to be in this for the long haul. And I think she was absolutely right. And I think that's probably true for any startup. It was certainly true for us. And I think that, what served us well was we really, from the outset, had a crystal focus on saying we're going to not go after 45 things. We're going to go after 3 things, then 5 things, then 7 things. And eventually, of course, you scale out that funnel, but you build off of being successful in a small number of things. I think the point was, though, that those things didn't become the end in themselves. So at no point did we ever say, this is it. These are the things we're going to do, and that's it. What we always felt was that these were examples of what was possible that built momentum for us to do the other things that we needed to do.
Very cool.
So we kind of had these 3 pillars when we started the COE. We first of all had the showcase. So showcase that it's possible. We've got to walk the talk. We've got to demonstrate that it works. We then have the network, and we need to do the change piece. We need to build the viral movement. We need to get people on board. We need to educate our executives. We need to build the momentum behind it. And then the final thing was we need to build stuff that's reusable. Because the challenge is that to build once is very expensive.
Sure.
You can start to repeat,
Sure.
you can actually get the flywheel effect kicking in.
Sure.
And I think, that's been the big learning for us of how can you create some common standards, build things consistently, create things that are reusable, and get some of the ancillary benefits from that.
Yeah.
And the final thing, I think, is about empowerment. I mean, the big thing that we learned is don't try and do it yourself. And that might sound like a crazy thing, but the big thing that a lot of COEs I find fall down on is that they tend to think that to show we're valuable, we need to do all the work. Yeah. And actually the opposite is true. To show you're valuable, you need to bring together the capability to execute and deliver the outcomes.
Yeah.
And that typically means dropping boundaries, internal and external, and bringing together groups of people that the sum of the parts is greater than any individual member of the team. And what we've learned to do over the last few years is to build these coherent teams which together can achieve phenomenal things. And some of the most exciting projects that we've seen have come out of those groups of people where we've brought fantastic capabilities together and really unusual combinations of people. And I think that's been amazing.
So the takeaway is that the spark can come from the COE, but the flame, the heat, the energy has to come from the community and all of Shell, all of the stakeholders. That's excellent advice. That's excellent advice. Go ahead, Ray.
Actually, related to that, you've also been doing some development. There's a Shell.ai residency program, if I remember.
That's right.
Talk a little bit about that, because you're recruiting the next generation as well through that.
Well, look, I mean, I think, anyone in the AI field will tell you that you sort of, you go away for a week on holiday and 5 things happened and you're out of date, right? And I think, I'm sure you guys feel that. I know, Ray, you try to keep up with date with all of this technology, you must feel that. It's just going so fast. And I feel you continually need to recognize that actually the cutting edge of this stuff is often happening in some of the universities, in some unique parts of industry. And actually, we got to bring that in because we need to learn from that. And I think this is the thing I've felt is you've got to be so humble in this space. You've got to always be learning and always be willing to have somebody challenge your conventional way of thinking. And so we wanted to bring in that challenge to our conventional ways of thinking because we've grown a lot from within, and that's been great. And we've built a lot of talent and we've developed a lot of people, but actually now seeding in some of that really innovative next generation talent is bringing some fantastic perspectives from outside Shell. And as I mentioned, it's that diversity that creates such strength. And I think that's, for me, that's where I get excited, right? So that's the thinking behind the residency program. And we just launched it in Bangalore. That's the 4th launch. And so it's going quickly and it's going global.
That's awesome. That's India's commitment to AI and innovative technologies is second to none. They're definitely on the forefront and trying to build and grow that talent there. So I'm curious in terms of the flow of ideas that come in and out of the COE, like when you're implementing, for example, machine vision technologies on the retail downstream, and you're using combination of sensors and ML and other technologies for upstream. Where do these ideas come from? If you want to optimize inventory in a warehouse versus delight customers who are visiting your 44,000 Shell branded stations, how much reusability of technology and who is it the 160 some odd folks in the COE, or where do you find this incredible, exciting projects to work on, and how do you prioritize them?
That's a great question. Well, so I mean, we've been very fortunate, right? So back in 2017, I didn't quite complete the story. In 2017, things kind of went up a notch for us because suddenly digital became mainstream, and our executive committee really got excited about it. And I think that was the inflection point at which things changed, and we went from sort of tens of people towards hundreds of people working in this space. I think though the thing about that was what they also did, which I think was brilliant, was it was a fantastic piece of strategy work because what they didn't try and do was tell us what to do. What they tried to do was give us a bunch of guide rails to say this is what you should be focused on.
That's awesome.
And a couple of the key principles that they put in place, which I think have served us really well, is customer or user is central, but also business owns digital. So the key point of those two things is you need to understand what the end user needs and focus on solving that problem at the lowest cost possible, but then figuring out whether that translates into a material business outcome that scales and is aligned to the business strategy. And if you want me to put what we're trying to do in a nutshell, that's it. Yeah. And getting good at that end to end is not easy. It sounds very simple.
Sure.
So hard.
Yeah. So hard. But it's a light process. I mean, a river without boundaries is a puddle. So they gave you some boundaries, but they didn't impede your flow of creativity and innovation. That's awesome.
Well, I've been so lucky, and I think that there's also a recognition that to thrive through energy transition, which is ultimately our focus, so we have to transform our business. Sure. We're in the midst of a huge transition in the energy system, and nobody knows what that's going to look like, because let's be really honest, changing the energy system is really, really hard. I wish it was easy, and I wish that I could click my fingers and it would change, but it's going to be really hard work. And there are sectors in our economies that are really hard to decarbonize. It's not simple stuff. The science is tricky, and scaling is even harder. And so the challenge, I think this is what they recognize, digital is key to that, but they needed to sort of create the environment in which the problems were clear, but actually unleash the creativity within the organization to allow us to solve those problems. And I think what's come out of that is some really good aligned business projects that drive material impact. And I think that's really cool.
You're on an amazing journey. Awesome. And when you're done, you're going to look like me because you're right. You're right. It is challenging, but I can tell you're having fun. It seems like you love what you do, and you have the freedom to, as Steve Jobs said, put a dent in the universe. So thank you for sharing that amazing your story with us.
Dan, thank you so much. We're here with Dan Jeavons, General Manager at Shell, and you can follow him on the company handle at SHELL, or check out the Shell.ai site if you want to learn a little bit more. So thanks a lot, Dan. Thanks for being on the show. So,
thank you, Dan.
We're about to go to our next guest, and this is episode number 207. I can't believe it's 207. Sponsored by Robots and Pencils. So who do we have next?
Yeah, we're close to 650 guest interviews, by the way. It's our privilege. Our next guest is Asha Aravindakshan, Vice President of Customer Delight. What a great title. And Operations at Sprinklr. That's awesome. I want to be responsible for that. I think we all should be. Asha is, again, Vice President of Customer Delight at Sprinklr, where she works with other senior executives on cross-functional initiatives to achieve corporate values of employee happiness. You can't have happy customers without happy employees. Customer happiness and growth. All of this goes hand in hand. Previously, Asha streamlined business operations to maximize accountability, growth, and strategic alignment for public and private stakeholders. Asha brings entrepreneurship agility with unwavering commitment to amplify impact. She serves on the board of directors for MIT Sloan Club of New York and as a venture partner for Verve Ventures. Asha presents at conferences across all of Americas and is a recipient of awards in digital transformation and future of work. You can follow her. She's a great follow on Twitter at DCASHA. Welcome, Asha, to DisrupTV.
Thank you, Vala. Thank you, Ray. It's great to be here.
Thank you.
It's so awesome having you here. You're a Business Transformation 150 winner, so congratulations. Thanks for being on the show. And you've been doing digital transformation for quite some time, and that's partly why we wanted to spend some time with you today, is to talk about digital transformation. You guys are using a very interesting value realization model. Talk a little bit about that, and I also want to know a little bit about how that digital transformation model is used, not just with you guys, but across other organizations.
Sure. I'd love to. First, let's start and tell people what Sprinklr is. So Sprinklr is a unified front office platform. We are creating a category with modern customer experience management. We help enterprises with marketing, advertising, research, care, and engagement across 35 social and messaging channels. This is all around the world. And so we love working with enterprise customers, ranging from McDonald's to Samsung, Allstate, in various different sectors. And it's fun learning from them as well and how they use our product in different ways and different use cases. The value realization model was actually something that was born about 18 months ago. A group of cross-functional leaders came together every day, 7:30 in the morning, to talk about how we were going to create this and roll this out. And really, it was the alignment of our pre-sales and post-sales initiatives, ranging from how you position value to the customer. And this could be done through your initial primary, secondary research before going into a sales meeting. Discover value, which is when you actually talk to the customer, understand their pain points. You show a demonstration of the software. You understand what they're using right now and where they're trying to go. That move from digital to customer experience is a big shift for some companies, and we're right there to help them. And then on the post-sale side, we're making sure that we're implementing value by, listening to what they said in the pre-sales process and making sure the software is configured to meet those use cases, which is super important because a lot of times customers say something in the sales process and it doesn't always appear at the other side, right? And we're here, we have our check and balances internally to make sure that we are implementing exactly what they've asked for in the way they've asked for it. And then finally, in the realized value phase, that they can see that value through a dashboard that's available right in the platform. And that dashboard is showing them ROI of their investment with us and the ROI of the actions they're taking in the platform. And it's amazing. I've seen so many of these dashboards now, throughout the year, and the reactions from our customers, especially through COVID-19, has been so, for them, they're seeing the value and they're seeing why Sprinklr is able to help them through this, very trying time.
So in general, taking yourself out of the context of Sprinklr, when you think about digital transformation, right? Are we seeing more engagement? Are we seeing people jump in with more projects that are being successful? Or are we still in experimental stage or experimentation?
No, this is totally in active mode. All our teams are using this with their customers. And it's beautiful seeing them be able to go into conversations where, everyone's at home right now. It's really easy to get an executive on the line, a lot easier than it was a year ago, right? And so when you have that captive audience and you're able to say, I'm not just here to, talk about your service, I'm here to show you the value that you're receiving from it. The executives are listening and they want to find out how they can use more of the service, how they have, they may have different use cases that have come up given that everyone's home and working from home and their customers are home, right? And they want ideas and best practices to help them through this, especially going into the holiday season, right? Retailers are looking for different avenues to engage with customers. E-commerce is huge right now. And so we're just seeing a changing landscape, right? You see this every week on your show with your different subjects, right? And so we're able to advise and help these customers because we're seeing it across 1,000 different customers, how they're reacting to this data.
Yeah, we had the lead practice at McKinsey a couple of weeks ago talk to us about 10 years of e-commerce adoption in the past 3 months.
Wow.
Where the U.S. Percentage of commerce digital grew from 16 to 33% from December of 2019 to present date. So a doubling effect since the beginning of the year. And so speed to value is how companies, demonstrate relevance, and sustained relevance leads to trust. So in terms of the position, discover, implement, and realize value phases, did you have to tweak any of the model given this, seismic event that we've all experienced since February, or it just further reinforced the importance of, unless you can demonstrate value realization, you're not going to earn the future business of your clients?
It was more the latter. And I'll give a really good example where a regional airline in Europe, they had 300,000 customer care tickets last year for the full year. They had 300,000 in the first 3 months of COVID. Okay. And they didn't have to change anything. Wow. Because the workflows, the AI that had already been trained, right, to handle that volume, the workflows were there to assign it to the agents. The only difference was their agents, only they had to worry about was moving from the office to working at home, right? The tool was there. Their tickets are coming in the same way, and they could handle the volume without issue. And they didn't lose anything on customer service during that time. And it's so important that we were able to help them do that. And that was because they had gone through the whole value realization framework, and they were at that realized value stage. And Sprinklr was configured for them in the way they needed it. And most importantly, the AI was tuned to the way they needed it.
And can you expand on that? Because the two parts of the equation is happy customers and happy employees. Yes. The fact that you had to, not like a dimmer, but light switch, move all of Sprinklr employees to work remotely. What was that process like, and how did you and the leadership team recognize the importance of empathy and flexibility, and recognizing that there may be some employees that don't have broadband access, or they're sharing an apartment with a roommate because they're
Right.
Just graduated from college, and we all we've all experienced the pandemic, but none of us have experienced it the same way. So it's really hard to ensure that happy employee equation as well.
Absolutely. And so 6.5 months ago, when we were having these conversations, it was twice a day about what to do.
Wow.
And made that decision finally to close the offices for employee safety globally. So it wasn't just 1 or 2, it was all 15 offices were going to be closed on the same day. It was for, and telling the employees, this is the best thing for you right now, given the information that we have and what's coming out from the governments in all these respective countries. And so we're 100% SaaS company, like our infrastructure is entirely SaaS. So it was seamless for the employee to take all their work on their laptop, which they were already using, and go home, right? Where they struggled was in that adjustment to being home, whether it's their, with their extended family, they don't have the best internet, they may not even have a table to work on, right? We heard stories about that. And so there was a series of listening forums that were done also to make sure that the executives understood the challenges the employees were facing. It was a very empathetic situation. And on both our CEO and our culture and talent team, they really stepped up as far as rolling out, I'm going to call them perks, but it really was like mental health benefits, things like Headspace, access to Audible, LinkedIn Learning, right? We saw LinkedIn Learning usage jump 60% in the first month people were at home.
Wow.
And people they want to be connected, they want to feel part of a community, and that community is going to be virtual. They needed avenues to find it, right? And so we were able to provide them with that. We're doing meditation 3 times a day. There's a personal trainer at lunch, right? These are all optional, but they're available, right? So the employee, if they need that break and it's on their calendar, and they can just step in to that Google Meet and join that event, and they don't ever feel isolated. Because that, I think, is like the hardest thing, right? And during this time period, because we're not seeing each other, we're not having those office run-ins, at the water station or the coffee pot.
It's tough, man. We don't have those moments of serendipity, right? You bump
Great. We need meditation for DisrupTV.
We need meditation. All right, let's do it now. No, let's not do it. So, no, but those are important points, right? And the nature of work's changing, the work environment's changing as well, and people are trying to adjust. So actually, one of the interesting things that you spend a lot of time talking about as well, and you've been pretty vocal about, is equal pay. So let's talk about that. You've been featured and hired for that, and really talking about what's going on there. How does that change now? I mean, when we think about, is it more prevalent? Is it less prevalent? Where does it sit in issues in terms of where people are talking about this?
I think there's definitely more transparency around it, right? It's not part of the conversation. Just the statistics that are out there about equal pay between men and women, even with different ethnic groups and races. And so I think people are just more informed. And I'm hoping that people are having these conversations as they're negotiating, new jobs and merit increases and all these things, and asking for the data, am I making the right, as the equivalent of my peers, right? And there's tons of information out there that's publicly available for Glassdoor, LinkedIn, PayScale, where people can do the research. And that wasn't the case, even 5 years ago. It was hard to find this information as an individual, as an employee. And now there's just more and more information. I worked in public sector. I'm used to having my salary published in the Washington Post, right? So for me, it was very different.
Here's your pay grade. Here's your name.
Everything, right?
Everybody knew right there.
Everybody knew. And, there's no hiding from it. And so here, in the private sector, you're just realizing that it's not the same. People don't know that this information should be transparent. So I have, a very unique perspective of it because I'm used to the transparency. But I'm hoping that other people are learning that they can ask for the information. They should be leveraging these publicly available data sources to benchmark themselves, right? And be informed, because it's important.
I saw you in a documentary where, again, you talked about where there was an opportunity for you to have 2 skip level promotion. And the employer at the time, was maybe perhaps a little bit hesitant in terms of promoting you 2 levels and paying you for that, upper level. And you mentioned the importance of having a sponsor. We often hear about in our careers, it's important to have a mentor, someone that teaches you how to think, not what to think, and guides you in terms of developing critical thinking skills and so on and so forth, like a coach, career coach. But a sponsor in my career has been more impactful than a mentor. Somebody that put their political social capital on the line. They were above me in the career ladder, and they extended their hand and they pulled me up. And I can think of several instances where I had major step function shifts in my career because of a sponsor. Can you talk and give some advice to other executives like yourself in terms of the importance of being a sponsor and paying it forward?
Yeah, I love that you distinguish a sponsor versus a mentor, right? That like taking that that chance on the political capital because you have a vested interest in someone's personal growth and development is huge. And not a lot of people will do that. And I think that to distinguish yourself as a leader, as someone who really cares about people, we talked about empathy earlier on, you have to be able to put yourself out there and help the others that are coming up behind you, right? Because that's the only way that they're going to be able to learn and to grow and to get the opportunities, right, as they come up. And someone's got to clear the path, and you can be that person to do that.
I agree. I have the good fortune of mentoring a good number of folks at my company. And one of my first early question is, who's your sponsor? And if they don't have one, my mentoring is all directed towards earn a sponsor. It's not like you can knock on an executive's door and say, hey, help me out. It doesn't work that way. But there are certain things you can do to earn a sponsor. And that I think is the most important. I actually think it's rewarding for the sponsor as well. I mean, it's super important to see someone rise through an organization because you value their rate of learning and their good judgment. So you're comfortable with, opening doors for them. So anyway, I thought that advice you gave on that, short documentary that I saw was brilliant. I appreciate it.
I think you were really good points. Like just watching someone's trajectory and knowing that you played a small role in it is the most rewarding part of a career.
Totally. So I don't remember how much money I made throughout my career in the last 20 some odd years, but I remember every single person that opened a door for me, every single person. And so I have elephant memory for door openers, and I don't have good memory about anything else. So if you want to be remembered as an executive or a business leader, be a sponsor. Sorry, Ray, go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's definitely true. And I think these are important topics, right? I mean, people are back. People are working from home. They've got more time to think about, their careers, what they want to do, what they might want to do next. And this is definitely the time to reevaluate, your career and where you want to go. I mean, and a lot of people don't often have the chance, that luxury to take that time to think about it. So for those folks that are out there, you just want to make sure that, you're being paid accordingly, you're paid fairly on the way up. So I think that was pretty powerful. So I think everyone should check it out. It's on Hired, actually. I can't remember right. That's where you can find that documentary. So I think that's pretty good. So, but I also want to talk to you about another issue, which is actually kind of fun. Really thinking about where you see the future of work, right? And where do you see what people are doing, right? I mean, you see what's happening in your companies, you see what's happening with other clients. But have we fundamentally changed? Do you think we're going to go back to what we were doing before, like maybe like a year from now or 2 years from now, when people feel things are more normal or more like what it was used to be?
I think there are going to be a large portion of people that will, because they love the routine, they love the interactions. There's something, just having that commuting time to yourself to think, right, that we're missing in our normal day.
Oh my God, I miss that. I miss the plane time. I actually miss the airport. I miss the smell in the airport.
When you're first class everywhere, he has Mercedes-Benz limos picking him up on the tarmac, with his super platinum cards. But most of us don't travel like Ray. Just letting the audience know.
No, but I'm also the guy that's sitting on the floor on the on the terminal, right next to like the wall with the charger plugged in there, trying to hawk Wi-Fi from like the airline club because I can't get in. I mean, but it's time to yourself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's that routine. I mean, do you miss that routine or?
I don't miss, waking up and taking the train for an hour into New York City, right? I do enjoy my 3-minute commute now, but I do miss, I used to, listen to my Audible during that time. And I used to read books and listen to books. And so I'm missing that, right? And that experience, that time to myself. And so I think there are people who will want to go back to exactly the way things were, back in January, for example. And then there are people who are going to say, no, I'm going to spend a little more time at home. I'm going to leave early to go to the kids' soccer game. And I think you're going to see more flexibility. And I hope that, when we go back to that and people do choose, to take more time for themselves, that we as a culture respect that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's the hardest thing. Like the people weren't doing that before because they felt they had to be button seat in the office, right? 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that they couldn't do those things. But now we're seeing the work is getting done.
Yeah.
Right? The work is getting done. It's people are more productive.
Yeah.
Right. And hopefully that continues.
Or burning out. So
well, you know, Andrew Yang and I are promoting 4-day work week. So that's I keep sharing case studies from Finland and Sweden and Denmark and all these places that are doing 4-day work week, and they're crushing it. Employees are happy, healthy. So I'm promoting a 3-day weekend. But anyway, that's a different show topic. Any other predictions? Any other prediction? You know, one prediction, short one. I think in this hyper-connected digital economy that's now distributed in nature and decentralized, I think the value of a traditional resume is going away. I think that the web is your resume, social networks are your mass references. So when my son's 10, by the time he's graduating college, hopefully, knock on wood, looking for work, I don't think anyone's going to be looking at an updated LinkedIn profile or a couple of pages of a written profile. There'll be enough intelligent applications to know competence and character and cultural fit just based on his digital footprint.
Exactly.
Anyway, so that's my prediction.
Or just on DisrupTV, they'll run the video. They'll run the video from DisrupTV and say, "Oh yeah, no, don't hire this person."
You know, it's the funny thing is, you know, how old is the resume, right? And it still stands the test of time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing.
But,
and someone tries to do something different, put a picture, add some color.
Yeah, exactly. But it's the same process that your grandfather, your father, and yourself used. Right. And then you get Gallup polls.
There are avatars in my resume. What about you? No, I was kidding.
75% of American workers are disengaged. The whole, you know, the whole thing needs to be disrupted mass. And I think it is. I think, you know, just for the record, when I was hired at Salesforce, I didn't have a resume, and I had zero interest of creating one.
He was such a loyal employee that he never bothered to put a resume. He worked at the same place for like.
It was more naivete. But bottom line is, I didn't have one. I have a story about that, but it's boring. But in any event, digital native companies like Sprinklr, Salesforce, others. They're not, you know, when they find talent, they're not using traditional methods to recruit. So believe you me. Anyway, that's my one cent topic on predictions.
You come back next year. How it is.
Come back next year and we'll talk more about what happened. No, I was kidding. We're here with Asha. I can never get your name right. Aravindakshan. Is that correct?
Aravindakshan, Ray.
I think I got it right. I should have done the closing.
You got it right. You got it right. Vice President, Customer Delight and Operations at Sprinklr. I know her at DC, Asha. So follow her on there and follow Sprinklr and catch up of what's happening next. And of course, definitely check out her video on Hired. So hey, thanks a lot for being on the show. Thanks a lot for being here on Friday.
Yeah. So. Thank you, Asha. You're great. You're terrific. All right. Wow. This is why Friday is my favorite time of the week, because my mind is just like spinning, like you wouldn't believe it. It's going to spin even faster. This is our cleanup hitter squad, where we bring someone in who hits a grand slam and just brings it all home. And so it's our privilege to have Cheryl Sullivan, who's currently the president of Demand Tech, a strategic business within Acoustic, where she leads Demand Tech's business that consists of a customer base of over 700 global retail and CPG companies. Cheryl's a proven retail and CPG innovation executives with 30 years of experience. She started when she was 4, leading teams to deliver high-impact products that meet the needs of retailers worldwide. Cheryl has spearheaded industry innovation that drive measurable business impact and profitability for many large retail and CPG organizations globally. Before joining Demand Tech, Cheryl helped steer the corporate strategy, led marketing, account development, product strategy, and roadmap for Residency. Cheryl is well recognized as a retail and pricing thought leader who's widely quoted in industry and business publication and presents at industry events worldwide. Another great follow on Twitter at @1 Cheryl, CHERYL SULLIVA. Welcome, Cheryl, to DisrupTV.
Thank you for having me back. It's great to be here again.
Thank you so much.
Hey, no, thanks for being here. And, we're talking about a really hot topic. And when we think about what's going on as the holiday season is coming up, believe it or not, and it is crazy. This is going to be a really bizarre season, unlike any other. Talk about how this is going to be different. What are retailers planning for? And more importantly, what can they do? So let's start there.
Yeah. COVID has really put retail in a tailspin. So there's good news and there's bad news. So the good news is that according to Bloomberg, the consumer spend is expected to grow 1 to 5%. But at the same time, they're claiming 1 in 5 businesses depend on these holiday sales for their survival. And the challenge for retailers is they're going to have to now plan against a shopper that is unrecognizable. So who they were pre-COVID is not who they are now, and it's not even going to be who they are when the pandemic is over. So this has changed forever. So what does that do? That brings really 3 major areas in play. So one is online growth. So COVID is, I always say, took the training wheels off of many people who were, teetering in online, but not really making it a major channel. So that is one big thing. We did a collaboration with Progressive Grocer on a shopper study, a global one that just recently came out. And what we learned was 35% of shoppers stated they've now made online their primary channel. So, and they expect this to keep going. And to put that in perspective, it was at 7%. So major growth there.
Are shopping malls dead? Is like retail shopping dead? I heard this earlier today on a TV show that retail is dead in New York City. Nothing's coming back. I mean, is it that extreme?
So you've got to look at who the retailers are because, really grocery, I've heard the term was given a lottery ticket. So unlike fashion and more areas where there's more discretionary spend, it's propelled grocery. Like, most retailers are seeing, anywhere from 10 to 30%. Our customers are seeing incredible increases in their sales. But coming into the holiday season, because of this online surge, Bloomberg stating that they're going to see a 35% growth in sales this holiday season. The problem is it's great that shoppers are willing to spend, but what are retailers going to do? That's the real question. And one of the things that COVID has really impacted is the level of price transparency and sensitivity that shoppers had, where they didn't used to have it. And when we asked these shoppers globally, and I will tell you the worst vertical of all that this has impacted has been grocery. So online grocery, big shift. 61% said that their price sensitivity levels are greater compared to other verticals, which was really hovered between 41 and 46%. But what's kind of scary is they also say that's going to increase even when the pandemic's over. So that number jumped to 66%. So retailers have to get their arms around what they're price sensitive in. And I've seen the third thing that's really put things in a tailspin is what I call shopper price perception. So in the study, 76% of shoppers said they experienced unfair pricing, price gouging, arbitrary pricing. Like they're not happy with the retailers today. So one would say, well, that's pretty high. Did really everybody do that? But rather, whether it's true or not, shoppers thinks it's true. And I don't believe that.
That's all that matters.
Yes. And I don't think retailers purposely did this. It's pretty apparent to us, and what we can see is, retailers bank on what they call key value items. And these are the items is a set of items in the retailer's assortment that truly drive this disproportionate amount of price perception. And what's happened with COVID is, KVIs typically stayed pretty stagnant, and retailers would do these one-off analytical projects, every 6 months or so to recheck, are they still in line? They've shifted all over the place. Yeast, believe it or not, for one of our customers has become a KVI item. Like who would have thought yeast would be, one of those items that are going to drive the perception. So these are really big areas. And unless retailers are getting their arms around AI, because I'm telling you, you're not, it's just, we're in a new world here. And, Demand Tech was the pioneer in bringing that. So the one good news about us is we were the first to bring this to market and the first to bring it to market in retail. So, and our science is obviously matured and grown. And what's been good is, our retailers have done quite well. But they are going to need to get going on some of this capability if they're going to, they can't bank on historical data anymore. They can't bank on what they did last year.
Which is a super challenge. Ray and I, again, interviewed a thought leader in this space, and I wrote a ZDNet article that stated 75% of Americans have switched brands during the pandemic. And the predominant reason for switching brand was availability. Good luck trying to get a refrigerator nowadays, or try buying a couch or furniture.
Oh my God,
everything is months.
It's 3 months out. It's 3 months out.
Literally. So supply chain disruption is a significant result of the pandemic. And when I think of pre-pandemic, you mentioned discretionary spend, so essential spend, non-essential. You really had relevance as a filter for non-essential. If you're a runner, you bought sneakers every 300 miles of running because it was good habit and it was relevant to your health habits. Since the pandemic, safety and accessibility are additional filters. I can't go to a Celtics game 15 minutes from my home because there's no access to the arena. Yeah. So given the fact that you have now safety, and I believe now it's a brand pillar for companies. You will not buy from a brand that doesn't appreciate the safety of its stakeholders. Mm-hmm. How do these retailers stock up for inventory? How do they do it?
Yeah. So a couple of things is interesting that you talk about the safety and we actually ask a lot of these questions even around cleanliness, and we try to drill into is that the number one driver now for who you're going to shop with? And what was surprising is price still ranked number one, far
price over safety.
See, yes, over cleanliness,
over safety.
Right. But Ray, the economic condition. I mean, again, that K economic. Those of us who are fortunate working still, but more of us are without jobs, and we haven't had relief. And so I can appreciate price.
Right. And what's interesting is what followed, which is always consistently followed for years now, is quality. So they want price, they want quality. And to your point about them shopping brands, certain brands, we also kind of tested the water around that, around brands, around private label. And what many of the shoppers are claiming is they are only going to shop brands they trust. There's this heavy shift to I'm going to shop brands I trust. What goes hand in hand with that is on the private label front. So many shoppers, were enticed to buy private label. And what they found out is private label is actually, good quality. Mm-hmm. And so they said right now there was a 7% growth in shoppers buying private label. So if you put those two together, I'm going to shop brands I trust because, added to the gouging and all these things like trust is, really deteriorated here. So it also means that retailers have got to get their strategies around private label and how they are balancing that with national brands. So that'll be a big deal, especially for retailers, if you take an Aldi or a Lidl or somebody like that, their predominant assortment is private label products. Yeah. And they're known for, really good pricing. So that's something they're going to have to get their arms around.
Sure. But Ray, just going back to our mall's dead. If I walked into a mall and the store didn't have a prominent sign that said masks are required, social distancing is required, they don't have contactless payment, the combination of those things, they're not going to earn my business. I mean, right away, if mask is not required, I'm not walking in. Just my personal point of view. So to me, you better demonstrate. In fact, that happened to my favorite restaurant. I saw a couple of the waitstaff wearing a mask under their nose. I walked out, and it's my favorite restaurant. I'm talking once a week dining. And wow. So you need to show me you're taking this seriously because it's. So again, my own personal view, I suspect more and more safety is going to rise to the very near top, especially if there's a second wave where we find flu season to be, more devastating than the past. So anyway,
it's definitely at the top. But back to even your initial question on inventory. So especially for these fashion and those types of retailers, that's always their challenge, right? How do I price? And really, it comes down to how you're pricing it and are you balancing against your inventory. But in reality, It's about how you're reacting to the unexpected, right? So when they leave and the door opens and out it all goes, they have a plan in place. But you know, if they're not really using some form of technology with science embedded in it that can actually monitor those inventory levels, know where that inventory is across those, and be dynamically recreating a markdown plan. Like, you may think it's, you know, this price and this price along this timeline, but in reality, maybe it's not. And so I think what's going to happen, and they've struggled with this, this is not a new problem. I think this is going to be a highly difficult problem, because where it might have been a few tweaks they have to do, I don't think they know what to expect. So they are not going to get their assortment right. They are not going to get their inventory right. And, you know, they're going to be at risk at not clearing that merchandise as profitably as they can.
Sorry, Rick, just quick. Cheryl, I watched the Battery Day with Elon Musk this week, and he talked about the power of decentralization in terms of having factories in multiple continents. And he said there's no way we can scale to production of 500,000 plus cars unless we had a distributed factory model. I'm wondering, are retailers thinking about distribution in terms of where the products are produced in a less centralized and more decentralized, so that they can be more resilient to things like a pandemic?
Yeah, I think, you know, they have their distribution centers, and a lot of them are looking at where else they can put distribution centers. I think their bigger problem is this buy online, pick up in store. You know, they're still not very prepared for that, right? They're trying to source it. I think, you know, with COVID, and especially this next wave that we're all bracing for, that's just going to get worse. Because that's where they're struggling. You know, they get the suppliers to get all the inventory in there, but that's why, you know, unless they know where all that inventory is and they're constantly allocating that inventory to the right places and shifting between stores and stuff like that, and then that doesn't matter if you're not pricing it properly and, you know, dealing with a highly price sensitive shopper. I would say for the holidays, the bigger problem is, you know, it's a very promotionally centric. And, you know, what promotions are you going to run? And one of the things that we saw was kind of shocked us was we asked, you know, what type of promotions, you know, it appeals to you. Part of it's shocking, part of it's not. What's never ranked first has been BOGOs. It's always been like percent off. And now it's BOGOs. It's like, I want one free. I'm not going to buy 2 to get 1 free. I'm not going to buy 1 and get 50. Like, it's what I want a BOGO. So it's getting that quantity at this cheap price. And then what followed that was $1 off. So percent off, which typically led the pack. I mean, there's a million different promotional types, but retailers don't get that. Like it's not just that I'm giving you a discount. It's like, what's the offer? And where are you reaching me with that offer? You know, so
that's a very interesting shift too. And one of the things you said earlier was really that, you know, because of, you know, the buying patterns have changed, a lot of people's models haven't changed to accommodate that. So what do you do if, like, you know, you're running the same offer you ran last year for the holiday season? Are you going to fail, or do you have to do something different? Like, do you know how to adjust?
Yeah, so this is where the pandemic has really showed a lot of things, right? So it showed that fixed models, or at least certain components of models, become obsolete very quickly. So, like we've stated several times at Demand Tech, that there's no one size fits all when it comes to demand modeling science. That by definition, the model's just that. It's a mathematical representation of behavior and the underlying relationships that's driving that behavior. So if the behavior is changing significantly, which we're obviously seeing in COVID, it's certainly possible that the model used to predict that behavior needs to adjust. So which is really the heart of machine learning. So it's not like you create it, set it, leave it, and it's all going to work fine. It's like it's got to constantly be tweaked, and you know, and that's why some people think they can build these models and then in-house and then walk away. In reality, we have a team of scientists that's their job all day long. You know, how do I improve this?
It's a living model, right? I mean, this is a living model.
Self-iterate, yeah.
And there are new techniques and new data sources. There's a lot of new things that are available now to inform the model. And I think retail, which was so slow, to adopt AI or even to go more dynamic is, fast tracking. Like they want everything dynamic. Even we have customers doing dynamic pricing in the brick and mortar store.
You and I were on a panel at NRF, and I think we had bumped into, Vala, we actually might have even bumped into you at that point in time talking about this. A lot has changed, right? And one of the things that we keep hearing a lot from our clients and other people is decision velocity, right? Machines can make decisions 100 times per second. Humans are lucky to make it 1 per second, and it's going to take them about a week to get it out of the boardroom. Yeah. I mean, it's asymmetric warfare. I mean, we're going to get crushed without this, right? So, pricing models are moving that fast, and supply chains, back to Vala's point, how am I going to get a refrigerator when it's like four months out? Do I just buy anything because my refrigerator died?
It's not just the velocity of decision making, but also the dimensionality of it. I mean, we've got retailers that are injecting IBM weather information to forecast inventory and price adjustments because they know inclement weather could devastate a promotional weekend event for, depending on where you are around the world. So yeah, it's decision making on so many dimensions and staying agile.
Yeah, and retail used to be slow, right? You used to have 6 months to plan things, and you don't have 6 months to plan things. And, it used to be what I would call very manually driven, even with technology, to say, okay, here's the strategy I want you to solve for. Well, who's to say that's the strategy? Where'd you come up with that? Here's the 5 promotions in this category. Tell me which is the best. Well, who's to say that's the right category, the best 5 promotions? Just tell me your financial targets and I'll tell you. We'll let the science tell you what you need to do.
Well, hey, thank you so much for sharing these insights in terms of what's going on. It's not going to be a same kind of scenario we've ever seen before. We're here with Cheryl Sullivan, president of Demand Tech by Acoustic, and you can follow her at Twitter at CHERYLSULLIVA. So, hey, thanks a lot for being on the show, and thanks for being back and give us some insights on the holiday season.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ray, as I listen to Cheryl, I think about your thesis on duopolies. Like, other than Amazon and Walmart, like, how can your average retailer, without partnerships with strong companies that have data science, AI capabilities, how do they survive? Like, it's highly volatile world. It's tough.
I think if you don't have those capabilities, you're going to be in a tough battle. It's going to be hard, right? But we're going to see that. We're going to see that happen. Like, how do you give small businesses the opportunity to actually access the same type of data and AI? Those are things that may change over time. We may see that in 20 years that, having free markets and fair markets might even require that. So it's going to get very interesting to see what happens as these digital giants emerge. But hey, we're about to get to episode 208 next week. That's going to be crazy. And a quick thanks to our sponsors, Robots and Pencils. We're going to jump to 208, but we got some awesome guests, and we're going to actually give people a sneak peek into some of the stuff we're using at our conference. So I don't know, who do we have?
Awesome. Yeah, it's episode 208. We're inching closer to 640 guests on Disrupt. Don Tapscott, co-founder, executive chairman at Blockchain Research Institute and author. He's a Thinkers 50 extraordinary visionary. Don is our guest. We have Lenny Hansarling, chief strategy officer at Aerospike. We have Stefan Rowe, co-founder of Wonder, formerly YoTribe. Wow, we've got lots of guests next week. I don't know if Pascal Stack, co-founder of Wonder.
Look at the whole founding team, actually.
Leonard Whitler, co-founder of Wonder. So we've got triple Wonder guests. So I'm just looking at this, 5 guests next week. Ray, you and I got to get our A game. We got to start this show earlier because we've got 5.
No. I was trying to help you with your count on the total guest.
Well, I guess we're going to get.
For those who don't know, Wonder is the platform we're using for basically our networking at Constellation Connected Enterprise, and it's a 3-person startup in Berlin, actually 4-person startup in Berlin that just got funding a few weeks ago. So they changed their name from YoTribe to Wonder, and we'll be debuting it at our event. So it'll be very fun. So they're going to share a little bit what they're doing, and we get all 3 founders. But hey, if it's Friday, it's DisrupTV. What do you got, Vala? Anything else to add?
No, it's been this whole month has been a big blur. I'm probably nowhere near as busy as you are, but it's amazing how many conferences, customer partner engagement.
Every Sprinklr keynote. You're like doing like 3 keynotes a week. That's crazy.
Well, I'm proud to say on October 9th, the closing keynote for Raise 2020, which is Prime Minister Modi's event. And I was just asked to deliver the closing keynote. So I'm excited about that. Yeah, thanks. And on Monday, I spoke at the UN General Assembly to the YPO, a large group of CEOs, and about sustainable development goals. And yeah, it's Ray, it's amazing. Yeah, you and I have dream jobs. So dream jobs.
No, we're all very thankful. Thanks everyone for listening to Disrupt TV, and see you guys next week. So
thank you, everyone.
Bye everyone.